Don't forget to subscribe. Afterwards, the wisest and most spiritual books from the greatest authors await you every day. And now buckle up, sit back and we'll begin. Mikhail Naimi. The Book of Mirdad. Chapter 12. On creative silence, speech is at best an honest lie. Naranda. When the 3 days were spent, the seven, as if by some irresistible command, gathered themselves together and made for the eyrie. The master greeted us as one fully expecting our coming. Mirdad. Once more I welcome you, my fledglings, to your nest. Speak out your thoughts and wishes to Mirdad. Mikayan. Our only thought and wish is to be near Mirdad, so we can feel and hear his truth. Perchance we shall become as shadowless as he. His silence hobbied awes us all. Have we offended him in any way? Mirdad. Not to exile you from myself have I kept silent for 3 days. Rather to draw you silence. The same can never be offended nor offend. Mikayan. Is to be silent better than to speak? Mirdad. Speech is at best an honest lie, while silence is at worst a naked verity. Abimer. Shall we conclude that even Mirdad's words, though honest, are but lies? Mirdad. Even Mirdad's words are but lies to all whose eye is not the same as Mirdad's, till all your thoughts be quarried from one quarry, and all desires drawn of the self-same well. Your words, though honest, shall be lies. When your eye and mine are one even as mine, and God's are one, we would dispense with words, and perfectly commune in truthful silence. Because your eye and mine are not the same, I am constrained to wage on you a war of words, that I may vanquish you with your own weapons, and lead you to my quarry and my well. And only then shall you be able to go forth into the world and vanquish and subdue it, even as I shall vanquish and subdue you. And only then shall you be fit to lead the world unto the silence of the consciousness supreme, unto the quarry of the word, unto the well of holy understanding. Not till you be so vanquished by Mirdad shall you become in truth impregnable and mighty conquerors, nor shall the world wash off the ignominy of its continuous defeat, save when defeated by you. So gird yourselves for battle. Furbish your shields and breastplates and whet your swords and spear. Let silence beat the drum and bear the standard too. Benun. What manner of silence is this that should be at once the drummer and the standard bearer? Mirdad. The silence I would usher you into is that interminable expanse wherein non-beings passes into being and being into non-being. It is that awesome void, where every sound is born and hushed, and every form is shaped and crushed, where every self is writ and unwrit, where nothing is but it. Except you cross that void and that expanse in silent contemplation, you shall not know how real is your being, how unreal the non-being, nor shall you know how fast your reality is bound up with all reality. It is that silence I would have you roam, that you may shed your old tight skin and move about unfettered, unrestrained. It is there I would have you drive your cares and fears, your passions and desires, your envies and your lusts, that you may see them vanish one by one, and thus relieve your ears of their incessant cries, and spare your sides the pain of their sharp spurs. It is there I would have you fling the bows and arrows of this world, wherewith you hope to hunt contentment and joy, yet hunt in truth nothing but restlessness and sorrow. It is there I would have you crawl out of the dark and stifling shell of self into the light and air of the self. This silence I commend unto you, and not a mere respite for your speech-worn tongues. The fruitful silence of the earth do I commend unto you, and not the fearful silence of the felon and knave. The patient silence of the setting hen do I commend unto you, not the impatient crackling of her laying sister. The one sets on for 21 days, and waits in silent confidence upon the mystic hand to bring about the miracle beneath her downy breast and wings. The other darts out of her coop, and madly crackles on announcing her deliverance of an egg. Beware of cackling virtue, my companions. As you muzzle your shame, so muzzle your honor too. For a cackling honor is worse than a silent dishonor, and clamorous virtue is worse than dumb iniquity. Refrain from speaking much. Out of 1,000 words uttered there may be one, and one only that need in truth be uttered. The rest but cloud the mind, and stuff the ear and irk the tongue, and blind the ear as well. How hard, oh how hard it is to write the word, that need in truth be written. Benoon, what of prayer, Master Mirdad? In praying we are made to say too many words and ask for far too many things, yet seldom are we granted any of the things we ask for. Chapter 13. On Prayer. Mirdad, you pray in vain when you address yourselves to any other gods, but your very selves, for in you is the power to attract as in you is the power to repel, and in you are the things you would attract as in you are the things you would repel, for to be able to receive a thing is to be able to bestow it also. Where there is hunger there is food, where there is food there must be hunger too. To be afflicted with the pain of hunger is to be able to enjoy the blessing of being filled, yea, in the want is the supply of want. Is not the key a warrant for the lock? Is not the lock a warrant for the key? Are not both lock and key a warrant for the door? Be not in haste to importune the smith each time you lose or misplace any key. The smith has done his work, and he has done it well, and he must not be asked to do the same work over and again. Do you your work, and let the smith alone, for he once done with you has other business to attend. Remove the stench and rubbish from your memory, and you shall surely find the key. When God the unutterable uttered you forth, he uttered forth himself in you, thus you too are unutterable. No fraction of himself did God endow you with, for he is infractionable. But wit is Godhood entire, indivisible, unspeakable, did he endow you all. What greater heritage can you aspire to have? And who or what can hinder you from coming thereunto except your own timidity and blindness? Yet rather than be grateful for their heritage and, rather than seek out the way of coming thereunto, some men, the blind ingrates, would make the God a sort of dumping hole, whither to cart their tooth and belly aches, their losses in a trade, their quarrels, their revenges, and their insomnious nights, while others would have God as their exclusive treasure house where they expect to find at any time they wished whatever they did crave of all the tinsel trinkets of this world, and others still would make of God a sort of personal bookkeeper. He must not only keep accounts of what they owe and what the others owe them, but must as well collect their debts and always show a fat and handsome balance in their favor. 52 I many and C are the tasks that men assign to God, yet few men seem to think that, if indeed God were so charged with many tasks, he would perform them all alone and would require no man to go to him on earth to remind him of his tasks. Do you remind God of the hours for the sun to rise and for the moon to set? Do you remind him of the grain of corn springing to life in yonder fields? Do you remind him of yon spider spinning his masterful retreat? Do you remind him of the countless things that fill this boundless universe? Why do you press your puny selves with all your trifling needs upon his memory? Are you less favored in his sight than sparrows, corn, and spiders? Why do you not as they receive your gifts and go about your labors without ado, without knee bending, arm extending, and without peering anxiously into the morrow? And where is God, that you should shout into his ear your whims and vanities, your praises and your plaints? Is he not in you, and all about you? Is not his ear much nearer to your mouth than is your tongue to your palate? Sufficient unto God is his Godhood, of which you have the seed. If God, having given you the seed of his Godhood, were to attend it, and not you, what virtue would you have? And what would be the labor of your life? And if you have no labor to perform, but God must perform it for you, of what account were then your life? Of what avail were all your praying? Take not to God your countless cares and hopes, implore him not to open for you the doors whereto he furnished you with keys, but search the vastness of your hearts, for in the vastness of the heart is found the key to every door. And in the vastness of the heart are all the things you thirst and hunger after, whether of evil or of good. A mighty host is placed at your beck and call, ready to do your slightest bidding. When properly equipped and wisely disciplined and fearlessly commanded, it can be made to leap eternities and sweep away all barriers to its goal. When mal-equipped, undisciplined, and timidly commanded, it either churns about or hastily retreats before the smallest obstacle, trailing behind it black defeat. No other is that host, O monks, than those minute red corpuscles now silently coursing through your veins. Each one of them a miracle of strength, each one a full and honest record of all your life, and of all life in its most intimate details. In the heart does this host assemble. From the heart does it deploy, hence is the heart so famed and so revered. Out of it gush your gears and joy and sorrow. Into it rush your fears of life and death. Your cravings and desires are the equipment of this host. Your mind is thereof the disciplinarian, your will the driller and commander. When you are able to equip your blood with one master desire that silences and overshadows all desires, and trust one master thought with the discipline, and charge one master will with drilling and commanding, then certain you may be of that desire's fulfillment. How does a saint attain to saintliness except by purging his bloodstream of every wish and thought incongruous to saintliness, and then directing it with an unwavering will to seek no other end but saintliness? I say to you that every saintly wish, and every saintly thought, and every saintly will from Adam till this day will rush to aid the man so bent on reaching saintliness. Forever had it been that waters anywhere will seek the sea as rays of light will seek the sun. How does a murderer accomplish his designs except by whipping up his blood into a frenzied thirst for murder, and marshalling its cells in serried ranks under the lash of murder-mastered thought, and then commanding it with relentless will to strike the fatal blow? I say to you that every murderer from Cain until this day will rush unasked to strengthen and to steady that man's arm who is so drunk with murder. Forever has it been that ravens anywhere will consort with ravens and hyenas with hyenas. To pray therefore is to infuse the blood with one master desire, one master thought, one master will. It is so to attune the self as to become in perfect harmony with whatever you pray for. This planet's atmosphere, mirrored in all details within your hearts, is billowing with vagrant memories of all the things it witnessed since its birth. No word or deed, no wish or sight, no passing thought or transient dream, no breath of man or beast, no shadow, no illusion, but ply in it their mystic courses till this very day, and shall so ply them to the end of time. Attune your heart to any one of these, and it shall surely dash to play upon the strings. You need no lip or tongue for praying, but rather do you need a silent wakeful heart, a master wish, a master thought, and above all a master will, that neither doubts nor hesitates, for words are of no avail except the heart be present and awake in every syllable, and when the heart is present and awake the tongue had better go to sleep or hide behind sealed lips, nor have you any need to temples to pray in. Whoever cannot find a temple in his heart, the same can never find his heart in any temple. Yet this I say to you, and to the ones like you, but not to every man, for most men are derelict as yet. They feel the need of praying, but know not the way. They cannot pray except with words, and they can find no words except you put them in their mouths. And they are lost and awed when made to roam the vastness of their hearts, but soothed and comforted within the walls of temples, and in their herds of creatures like themselves. Let them erect their temples, let them chant their prayers, but you and every man I charge to pray for understanding, to hunger after anything, but that is never to be filled. Remember that the key to life is the creative word, the key to creative word is love. The key to love is understanding. Fill up your hearts with these, and spare your tongues in pain of many words, and save your minds the weight of many prayers, and free your hearts from bondage to all gods who would enslave you with a gift, who would caress you with one hand, only to smite you with the other, who are content and kindly when you praise them, but wrathful and revengeful when reproached, who would not hear you save you call, and would not give you save you beg, and having given you too oft regret the giving, whose incense is your tear, whose glory is your shame. I free your hearts of all those gods, that you may find in them the only God who, having filled you with himself, would have you every full. Benoon, now you speak of man as omnipotent, now you belittle him as a derelict, you leave us in fog as it were. Chapter 14. The colloquy between two archangels, and the colloquy between two archdemons at the timeless birth of man. Mirdad. At the timeless birth of man, two archangels at the upper pole of the universe held the following colloquy. Said the first archangel, "A wondrous child has been born unto earth, and earth is ablaze with light." Said the second archangel, "A glorious king has been born unto heaven, and heaven is athrob with joy." First, he is the fruit of the union twixt heaven and earth. Second, he is the union eternal, the Father, the Mother, and the child. First, in him is earth exalted. Second, in him is heaven justified. First, day is asleep in his eyes. Second, night is awake in his heart. First, his breast is a nest of gales. Second, his throat is a scale of song. First, his arms embrace the mountains. Second, his fingers pluck the stars. First, seas are roaring in his bones. Second, suns are coursing in his veins. First, a forge and a mold is his mouth. Second, a hammer and an anvil his tongue. First, round his feet are the chains of tomorrow. Second, in his heart is the key to the chains. First, yet cradled in dust is the babe. Second, but swaddled in eons is he. First, like God does he hold of numbers every secret. Like God does he know the mystery of words. Second, all numbers does he know, but the sacred one which is the first and last, all words does he ken, save the creative word which is the first and last. First, yet shall he know the number and the word. Second, not till he walks away his feet away from the trackless wastes of space, nor till he looks his eyes away upon the dismal vaults of time. First, O wondrous, too wondrous is this child of earth. Second, O glorious, too glorious is this king of heaven. First, the nameless called him man. Second, and he called the nameless God. First, man is the word of God. Second, God is the word of man. First, glory to him whose word is man. Second, glory to him whose word is God. First, now and forever. Second, here and everywhere. So spoke two archangels at the upper pole of the universe at the timeless birth of man. At the same time, two archdemons at the nether pole of the universe were holding the following colloquy. Said the first archdemon, "A whining and a sniveling coward rather say. And treason is encamped on his brow, yet terrible is he in his cowardice and treason. First, fearless and wild is his eye. Second, tearful and tame is his heart, yet fearful is he in his tameness and tears. First, keen and persistent is his mind. Second, slothful and dull is his ear, yet dangerous is he in his sloth and his dullness. First, swift and precise is his hand. Second, hesitant and sluggish is his foot, yet dreadful is his sluggishness and alarming is his hesitance. First, our bread shall he steal to his nerves, our wine shall he fire to his blood. Second, our bread bins he shall stone us with, our wine jars he shall break upon our heads. First, his lust for our bread and his thirst for our wine shall be his chariot in battle. Second, with hunger unappeasable and thirst unquenchable he shall be made unconquerable, and raise rebellion in our camp. First, but death shall be the charioteer. Second, with death as his charioteer he shall become immortal. First, shall death lead him to aught but death. Second, I so wearied shall be death of his constant whining, that he shall drive him in the end into the camp of life. First, shall death be a traitor to death. Second, nay, life shall be faithful to life. First, his palate we shall tease with rare and delectable fruits. Second, yet shall he long for fruit not grown upon this pole. First, his eyes and nose we shall entice with bright and fragrant flowers. Second, yet shall his eye seek other flowers and his nose another fragrance. First, and we shall haunt his ears with sweet but distant melodies. Second, yet shall his ear be towards another choir. First, fear shall enslave him to us. Second, hope shall protect him from fear. First, pain shall subdue him to us. Second, faith shall deliver him of pain. First, we shall employ his sleep with puzzling dreams, and stew his wakefulness with enigmatic shadows. Second, his fancy shall undo the puzzles and melt away the shadows. First, With Al we can count him as one of us. Second, count him with us if you wish. But count him as against us also. First, can he at the same be with us and against us? Second, he is a lonely warrior in the field. His only adversary is his shadow. As shifts the shadow, so the battle shifts. He is with us when his shadow is in front. He is against us when his shadow is behind. First, shall we not keep him then with his back forever to the sun? Second, but who shall keep the sun forever at his back? First, a riddle is this warrior. Second, a riddle is this shadow. First, hail to the lonely night. Second, hail to the lonely shadow. First, hail to him when with us. Second, hail to him when against us. First, now and forever. Second, here and everywhere. So spoke two archdemons at the nether pole of the universe at the timeless birth of man. Chapter 15. Shamanism makes an effort to put Mirdad out of the ark. The master speaks of insulting and being insulted, and of containing the world in holy understanding. Naranda, hardly had the master finished when the senior's bulky frame appeared at the entrance of the eyrie and seemed to shut out the air and light, and it flashed through my mind for the instant that the figure at the entrance was no others than one of the two archdemons of whom the master had just told us. The senior's eyes struck fire and his beard bristled as he advanced towards the master and grabbed him by the arm, attempting, evidently, to drag him out. Shamanism, I have just heard the awful vomiting of your vile mind. Your mouth is a spout of poison. Your presence is an omen of ill. As senior of the ark I bid you out this very instant. Naranda, the master, though slight of structure, held his ground with perfect ease, as if he were a giant and Shamanism but a babe. His equanimity was astounding as he looked at Shamanism and said, Mirdad, he only has the power to bid out who has the power to bid in. Did you, Shamanism, bid me in? Shamanism, it was your wretchedness that moved my heart with pity and I allowed you in. Mirdad, it is my love, Shamanism, that was moved by your wretchedness, and lo, I'm here, and with me is my love, but you, alas, are neither here nor there. Your shadow only flits hither and yon, and I am come to gather up all shadows and burn them in the sun. Shamanism, I was the senior of this ark long before your breath began to pollute the air. How does your vile tongue say I am not here? Mirdad, before these mountains where I was, and I shall be long after they have crumpled into dust. I am the ark, the altar and the fire. Save you be sheltered in me, you shall remain a prey to the storm, and save you immolate yourselves before me, you shall not know immunity from the ever-sharpened knives of death's innumerable butchers, and save my tender fire consume you, you shall be fuel to the cruel fire of hell. Shamanism, did you all hear? Did you not hear? With me, companions, let us cast this blaspheming impostor into the pit below. Naranda, again Shamanism dashed towards the master and grabbed him by the arm, wishing to drag him out, but the master neither flinched nor budged, nor did any companion make the slightest move. After a trying pause, Shamanism's head fell to his chest, and he slunk out of the eyrie mumbling, as to himself, I am the senior of this ark. I shall assert my God-given authority. The master mused for long and would not speak, but Zamora could not hold his peace. Zamora, Shamanism has insulted our master. What would you, master, that we do with him? Command us and we shall strike. Mirdad, pray for Shamanism, my companions. That is all I would have you do with him. Pray that his eyes may be unveiled and his shadow lifted. As easy it is to attract the good as to attract the evil. As easy to be turned to love as to be turned to hate. Out of the boundless space, out of the vastness of your hearts, draw blessings on the world, for everything that is a blessing to the world is to you a blessing. Pray for the good of all the creatures, for every good of every creature is your good as well. Likewise the ill of every creature is your ill as well. Are you not all as moving rungs in the infinite ladder of being? Those who would mount a holy freedom sphere must mount perforce upon the other's shoulders, and they in turn must make their shoulders rungs for the others to mount upon. What is Shamanism but a rung in the ladder of your being? Would you not have your ladder strong and safe? Attend then to every rung, and keep it safe and strong. What is Shamanism but a stone in the foundation of your life? And what are you but stones in his and every creature's edifice of life? See that Shamanism be a faultless stone. If you would have your edifice entirely free of fault, be faultless yourselves, that those into whose lives you may be built may have their edifice without a fault. Think you are equipped with no more than 2 eyes? I say to you that every seeing eye, whether on earth above it or below it, is an extension of your eye. To the extent your neighbor's sight is clear, to that extent your sight is also clear. To the extent your neighbor's sight is dimmed, to that extent your sight is also dimmed. In every blind man you are deprived of a pair of eyes that otherwise would reinforce your eyes. Preserve your neighbor's sight, that you may see the clearer. Preserve your own, that your neighbor may not stumble and block perhaps your very door. Zamora thinks Shamanism has insulted me. How can Shamanism's ignorance ruffle my understanding? A muddy brook can easily muddy another brook, but can a muddy brook muddy the sea? The sea shall gladly take the mud and spread it in its bed and give the brook clear water in return. You can defile or sterilize a square foot of the earth, perhaps a mile. Who can defile or sterilize the earth? The earth accepts all men's and beasts' impurities and gives them in return sweet fruits and fragrant flowers and grains and grasses in abundance. A sword can surely wound the flesh, but can it wound the air, however keen of edge and strong the arm behind it? It is the pride of mean and narrow self begot of blind and lustful ignorance that can insult and be insulted, and would avenge the insult with an insult and wash away the filth with filth. The pride-ridden and self-intoxicated world shall heap up injuries upon your heads. It shall unleash on you the bloodthirsty hounds of its tattered laws, its putrid creeds and moldy honors. It shall proclaim you enemies of order and agents of chaos and doom. It shall bestre your roads with snares and shall bedeck your beds with nettles. It shall sow curses in your ears and spit contempt upon your faces. Let not your hearts be faint, but like the sea be broad and deep, and give a blessing unto him that gives you but a curse. And like the earth be generous and calm, and turn impurities of men's hearts into pure health and beauty. And like the air be free and supple. The sword that would wound you would finally tarnish and rust. The arm that would harm you would finally weary and halt. The world not knowing you cannot contain you, therefore shall it receive you with a snarl? But you knowing the world can contain it. Therefore must you allay its wrath with kindness and drown its calumny in loving understanding. And understanding shall carry the day. So taught I Noah, so I teach you, Naranda. Thereupon the 7 dispersed in silence, for we had come to know that every time the master concluded with these words, so taught I Noah, it was a signal that he wished to speak no more. Chapter 16. On Creditors and Debtors. What is money? Rustodian acquitted of his debt to the ark. Naranda. One day as the 7 and the master were returning from the Airy to the ark, they saw Shamanism at the gate waving a piece of paper at a man prostrated at his feet, and heard him saying in an angry voice, "Your delinquency exhausts my patience. I can be lenient no longer. Pay now or rot in prison." The man we recognized as Rustodian, one of the many tenants of the ark who was indebted to the ark for a certain sum of money. He was bent as much with rags as with years, and he pleaded with the senior for a time to pay the interest, saying that he had recently lost his only son and his only cow in the same week, and that his old wife as a consequence was struck with palsy. But Shamanism's heart would not soften. The master walked towards Rustodian, and taking him gently by the arm he said, "Mirdad, arise, my Rustodian. You too are an image of God, and God's image must not be made to bow before any shadow." Then turning to Shamanism, "Show me the bill of indebtedness, Naranda." Shamanism, so furious but a moment before, became to the amazement of all more docile than a lamb, and meekly handed to the master the paper in his hand, which paper the master took and scrutinized for long, with Shamanism bluntly looking on and saying nothing, as if in a spell. "Mirdad, no moneylender was the founder of the ark. Did he bequeath you money?" to lend out with usury? Did he bequeath you chattels to trade in, or lands to rent and hoard the fat thereof? Did he bequeath you your brother's sweat and blood, and then bequeath you prisons for the ones whose sweat you have drained to the end, and whose blood you have sucked to a drop? An ark and an altar and a light did he bequeath you, nothing more. An ark which is his living body, an altar which is his dauntless heart, a light which is his burning faith, and these he commanded you to keep intact and pure amid a world dancing to pipes of death and wallowing in quagmires of iniquity because of faithlessness, and that the cares of the body may not distract your spirit. You were allowed to live upon the charity of the faithful, and never since the ark was launched was there a dearth of charity, but lo, this charity have you now turned into a curse both for yourselves and for the charitable, for with their gifts you subjugate the givers, you scourge them with the very thread they spin for you, you strip them naked with the very cloth they weave for you, you starve them with the very bread they bake for you, you build them prisons with the very stones they cut and dress for you, you fashion yokes and coffins for them out of the very wood they provide you for your warmth, their very sweat and blood you loan them back with usury, for that were money, but the sweat and blood of men coined by the crafty into mites and shekels wherewith to shackle men? And what were riches, but the sweat and blood of men garnered by those who sweat and bleed the least, to grind therewith the backs of those who sweat and bleed the most? Woe and woe again unto them who burn away their minds and hearts and slay their nights and days in storing riches, for they know not what they store. The sweat of harlots, murderers and thieves, the sweat of the consumptive, the leper and the palsied, the sweat of the blind and the halt, and the maimed, with that of the plowman and his ox, and of the shepherd and his sheep, and of the reaper and the gleaner, all these and many more do the storers of riches store. The blood of the orphan and the rogue, of the despot and the martyr, of the wicked and the just, of the robber and the robbed, the blood of executioners and those they execute, the blood of leeches and cheats, and those they suck and cheat, all these and many more do the storers of riches store. I woe and woe again to those whose riches and shoes, stock and trade is the sweat and blood of man. For sweat and blood will in the end exact their price, and terrible shall be the price and fearful the exacting, to lend and lend with interest. That is indeed ingratitude too brazen to condone, for what have you to lend? Is not your very life a gift? Were God to charge you interest for the least of his gifts unto you, wherewith would you pay? Is not this world a common treasury wherein each man each thing deposit all they have for the maintenance of all? Does the lark lend you its song and the spring its sparkling water? Does the oak loan its shade and the palm its honeyed dates? Does the sheep give you his wool and the cow here milk for interest? Do the clouds sell you their rain, and the sun his warmth and light? What would be your life without these things and myriad other things? And who of you can tell which man which thing have deposited the most, and which the least in the treasury of the world? Can you Shamanism calculate Christidian's contributions to the treasury of the ark? Yet would you lend him back his very contributions, perhaps but a trifling part thereof, and charge him interest to boot, yet would you send him to prison, and leave him there to rot? What interest do you demand of Christidian? Can you not see how profitable your loan has been to him? What better payment do you wish than a dead son, a dead cow and a palsied wife? What greater interest can you exact than these, so moldy rags upon so bent a back? Ah, rub your eyes, Shamanism. Be awake before you too are asked to pay your debts with interest, and failing that be dragged into prison, and there be left to rot. The same I say to all of you companions, rub your eyes and be awake, give when you can, and all you can, but never lend lest all you have, even your life, become a loan, and the loan fall due at once, and you be found insolvent, and cast into prison. Naranda. The master then looked again at the paper in his hand, and deliberately tore it to shreds, which shreds he scattered to the wind. Then turning to Himmel, who was the keeper of the treasury, he said to him, Mirdad, give Christidian wherewith to buy the cows and care for his wife and himself to the end of their days, and you Christidian go in peace. You are acquitted of your debt. Take care that you never become a creditor. For the debt of him who lends is greater and heavier by far than the debt of him who borrows. Chapter 17. Shamanism resorts to bribery in his fight against Mirdad. Naranda. For many days the case of Rustidian was the chief topic in the ark. Mickey and Mickaster and Zamora lauded the master with vehemence, Zamora saying that he loathed the very sight and touch of money. Benoon and Abimer mildly approved and disapproved, while Himmel openly disapproved, saying that the world could never do without money, and that riches were God's just recompense of thrift and industry, as poverty was God's patent penalty of indolence and wastefulness, and that to the end of time there shall be creditors and debtors among men. Meanwhile Shamanism was busy repairing his prestige as senior. He called me once unto himself, and in the privacy of his cell, spoke to me as follows: You are the scribe and historian of this ark, and you are a poor man's son. Your father has no land yet has 7 children and a wife to labor for and to provide with bare necessities. Record no word of this unfortunate episode, lest those who shall come after us make of Shamanism stock for laughter. Desert this reprobate Mirdad, and I shall make your father a freeholder, and stock his granaries and fill his coffer full. To which I responded that God would care for my father and his family much better than Shamanism ever could. As to Mirdad, I owned him as my master and deliverer, and sooner would desert my life than desert him. As to the records of the ark, I shall keep them in good faith and to the best of my knowledge and ability. I later learned that Shamanism had made similar proffers to every one of the companions, and how successful they were I could not tell. It was noticeable, however, that Himmel was not so constant as before in his attendance of the Airy. Chapter 18. Mirdad divines the death of Himmel's father and the circumstances thereof. He speaks of death. Time is the greatest juggler, the wheel of time, its rim and its axis. Naranda. Much water had leapt down the mountains and swept into the sea, when the companions lacking Himmel were once more gathered round the master in the Airy. The master was discoursing on the Omniwill, but suddenly he stopped and said, Mirdad, Himmel is in distress, and would come to us for relief, but his feet are too ashamed to carry him hither. Go and assist him, Abimer. Naranda. Abimer went out and soon returned with Himmel, who was shaking with sobs and had a most unhappy countenance. Mirdad. Come near me, Himmel. Ah, Himmel, Himmel, because your father died you let grief gnaw your heart and turn its blood to tears. What would you do when all your family die? What would you do when all the fathers and the mothers and all the sisters and the brothers in this world pass out of and beyond the reach of your hands and eyes? Himmel. Aye, master, my father died a violent death. A steer he had recently bought gored his belly and crushed his skull, but Yerdarov, I have just been told it by the messenger. Woe is me. Ah, woe is me. Mirdad, and he died, it seems, at the very time when the fortunes of this world were about to smile to him. Himmel. It is so, master, it is even so. Mirdad. And his death pains you the keener because the steer was bought with the money you had sent him. Himmel. It is so, master, it is even so. You seem to know all things. Mirdad. Which money was the price of your love for Mirdad? Naranda. Himmel could speak no more, for he choked with tears. Mirdad. Your father is not dead, Himmel, nor dead are yet his form and shadow, but dead indeed are your senses to your father's altered form and shadow, for there be forms so delicate with shadow so attenuated that the coarse eye of man cannot detect. The shadow of a cedar in the forest is not the same as the shadow of that cedar become a mast upon a ship, or a pillar in the temple or scaffolding for gallows, nor is the shadow of that cedar in the sun the same as it is in the light of the moon or the stars, or in the purple haze of dawn. Yet that cedar, no matter how transformed lives on as a cedar thought the cedars in the forest, recognize it no longer as their sister of yore. Can a silkworm on the leaf discern a sister in the worm pupating in the silk cocoon? Or can the latter see a sister in the silk moth on the wing? Can a grain of wheat in the earth know her kinship with a stalk of wheat above the earth? Can the vapors in the air, or the waters in the sea, own as sisters and brothers the icicles in a mountain crevice? Can the earth discern a sister star in a meteor hurled unto her out of the deeps of space? Can the oak see itself in the acorn? Because your Father is now in a light to which your eye is not accustomed, and in a form which you cannot discern, you say your Father is no more but man's material self, no matter where transported, and how changed is bound to cast a shadow until dissolved entirely in the light of man's God self. A piece of wood be it today a green branch on a tree, and a peg in the wall, tomorrow continues to be wood, and to change in form and shadow until consumed by the fire within it. Likewise shall man continue to be a man, when living as when dead, until the God in him consume him, which is to say until he understands his oneness with the One. But this is not to be accomplished in the twinkling of an eye, which men are pleased to designate as a lifetime. All time is lifetime, my companions. There are no halts and starts in time, nor are there caravanserais, where travelers may stop for refreshment and rest. Time is a continuity which overlaps itself. Its rear is coupled to its van. Nothing is ended and dismissed in time, and nothing is begun and finished. Time is a wheel created by the senses, and by the senses, set a whirling in the voids of space. You sense the bewildering change of seasons, and you believe therefore that all is in the clutches of change, but you allow withal that the power which folds and unfolds the seasons is everlastingly one and the same. You sense the growth of things and their decay, and you declare despondently that decay is the end of all growing things, but you avow that the force which makes for the growth and decay itself neither grows nor decays. You sense the speed of the wind in relation to the breeze, and you say that the wind is the swiftest by far, but despite that you admit that the mover of the wind and the mover of the breeze is one and the same, and neither dashes with the wind nor toddles with the breeze. How credulous you are! How gullible of every trick your senses play on you! Where is your imagination? For with it only can you see that all the changes which bewilder you are but a sleight of hand. How can the wind be swifter than the breeze? Does not the breeze give birth to the wind? Does not the wind carry with it the breeze? You walkers on the earth, how measure you the distances you walk? With paces and with leagues? Whether you saunter or gallop, are you not carried on by the speed of the earth into the spaces and regions whither the earth herself is carried? Is not your gait therefore the same as the gait of the earth? Is not the earth in turn carried along by the other bodies, and her speed made equal to their speed? Yea, the slow is the mother of the swift is the carrier of the slow, and the swift and slow are inseparable at every point of time and space. How say you that growth is growth and decay is decay, and that the one is the other's enemy? Has anything ever sprung up except out of something decayed? Has anything ever decayed except from something growing? Are not the dead the subsoil of the living, and the living the granaries of the dead? If growth be the child of decay, and decay be the child of growth, if life be the mother of death, and death be the mother of life, then verily were they but one at every point of time and space, and verily were your joy for living, and for growing, so stupid as your grief for dying and decaying. How say you that autumn only is the season of grapes? I say that the grape is ripe in winter too, when it is but a drowsing sap pulsating imperceptibly, and dreaming its dreams in the vine, and also in the spring, when it comes out in tender clusters of tiny beads of emerald, and also in the summer, when the clusters spread out and the beads swell up, and their cheeks become tinted with the gold of the sun. If every season carry in itself the other three, then verily were all the seasons one at every point of time and space. Time is the greatest juggler and men are the greatest dupes. Much like the squirrel in the wheelman who has set the wheel of time a-turning is so enthralled and carried by the motion that he no longer can believe himself to be the mover, nor can he find the time to stay the whir of time. And much like the cat that licks its tongue away in licking a whetstone, believing the blood it licks to be seeping from the stone. Man licks his very blood spilled on the rim of time, and munches his very flesh rent by the spokes of time, believing them to be the blood and flesh of time. The wheel of time revolves in the voids of space. Upon its rim are all the things perceivable by the senses, which are unable to perceive a thing except in time and space. So things continue to appear and disappear. What disappears for one at a certain point of time and space appears to another at another point. What may be up to one is down to another. What may be day to one is to another night, depending on the when and where of the looker on. One is the road of life and death, O monks, upon the rim of the wheel of time. For motion in a circle can never reach an end nor ever spent itself, and every motion in the world is a motion in a circle. Shall man then never free himself of the vicious circle of time? Man shall, because man is heir to God's holy freedom. The wheel of time rotates, but its axis is ever at rest. God is the axis of the wheel of time. Though all things rotate about him in time and space, yet is he always timeless, and spaceless and still. Though all things proceed from his word, yet is his word as timeless and spaceless as he. In the axis all is peace, on the rim all is commotion. Where would you rather be? I say to you, slip from the rim of time into the axis, and spare yourselves the nausea of motion. Let time revolve about you, but you revolve not with time. Chapter 19. Logic and faith. Self-denial is self-assertion. How to arrest the wheel of time. Weeping and laughing. Benoon, forgive me, master, but your logic confounds me with its illogicality. Mirdad, no wonder, Benoon, you have been called the judge. You would insist upon the logic of the case before you can decide it. Have you been judged so long, and have not yet found out that the only use of logic is to rid man of logic and lead him to faith, which leads to understanding? Logic is immaturity weaving its nets of gossamer wherewith it aims to catch the behemoth of knowledge. When logic comes of age, it strangles itself in its nets and then becomes transmuted into faith, which is the deeper knowledge. Logic is a crutch for the cripple, but a burden for the swift of foot, and a greater burden still for the winged. Logic is faith in dotage. Faith is logic come of age. When your logic comes of age, Benoon, as soon it shall, you would no longer speak of logic. Benoon. To slip from the rim of time into the axis, we must perforce deny ourselves. Can man deny his own existence? Mirdad, for that indeed you must deny the self that is a plaything in the hands of time, and thus assert the self which is immune to juggleries of time. Benoon, can the denial of oneself be the assertion of another? Mirdad, to deny the self is to assert the self. When one is dead to change, then one is born to changelessness. Most men live to die. Happy are they who die to live. Benoon, yet dear is man's identity to man. How shall he sink in God and still be aware of his identity? Mirdad, is it a loss for the brook to be lost in the sea and thus be aware of itself as the sea? For man to lose his identity in God is but to lose his shadow and find the shadowless essence of his being. Micaster, how can man, a creature of time, be free of the clutches of time? Mirdad, as death shall deliver you from death and life shall release you from life, so shall time emancipate you from time. Man shall so weary of change that everything in him shall yearn and yearn with unabating passion for that which is mightier than change, and surely he shall find it in himself. Happy are they that yearn, for they are already upon the threshold of freedom. Them do I seek, and for them do I preach. Have I not chosen you, because I heard your yearning? But woe to them who swing the rounds of time, and seek to find therein their freedom and their peace. No sooner do they smile for birth than they are made to weep for death. No sooner are they filled when they are emptied. No sooner do they trap the dove of peace than she is turned into a vulture of war in their hands. The more they think they know, the less in truth they know. The farther they advance, the farther they retreat. The higher they rise, the lower they fall. For these my words shall be a vague and irritating murmurs. As prayers in a madhouse shall they be, and as torches lit before the blind. Not till they too begin to yearn for freedom will they open their ears to my words. Himmel, weeping, not only my ears have you opened, Master, but also my heart. Forgive the deaf and blind, Himmel of yesterday. Mirdad, arrest your tears, Himmel. A tear does not become an eye that searches for horizons beyond the domains of time and space. Let those who laugh when tickled by time's cunning fingers weep when their skin is shredded by his nails. Let those who dance and sing to radiate of youth totter and moan to wrinkles of old age. Let merrymakers at the carnivals of time cover their heads with ashes at his funerals. But you must ever be serene. In the kaleidoscope of change seek only the unchanging. Nothing is worth a tear in time. Nothing is worth a smile. A laughing face and a weeping face are equally unseemly and distorted. Would you avoid the salt of tears? Avoid then the contortions of laughter. A tear when volatilized becomes a giggle when condensed becomes a tear. Be neither volatile to joy nor condensable to sorrow, but be serenely equable to both. Chapter 20. Where do we go after we die? On repentance. Mikister, Master, where do we go after we die? Mirdad, where are you now? Mikister, in the airy. Mirdad, think you this area large enough to contain you? Think you this earth man's only home? Your bodies, though circumscribed in time and space, are drawn from everything in time and space. So much of you as comes from the sun lives in the sun. So much of you as comes from the earth lives in the earth. And so with all the other spheres and the trackless spaces between. The foolish only like to think that man's only abode is the earth, and that the myriad bodies floating in the space are but as ornaments for man's abode, and as distractions for his eyes. The morning star, the Milky Way, the Pleiades are no less homes for man than is this earth. Each time they send a ray into his eye they lift him to themselves. Each time he passes under them, he draws them to himself. All things are incorporated into man, and man is in turn incorporated into them. The universe is but a single body. Commune with the slightest particle thereof, and you commune with all. And as you die continually when living, so do you live continually when dead, if not in this body, then in the body of another form. But you continue to live in a body until dissolved in God, which is to say, until you overcome all change. Mikister, do we return to this earth as we journey from change to change? Mirdad, the law of time is repetition. What once occurred in time is bound to reoccur again and again. The intervals, in the case of man, may be long or brief depending on the intensity of each man's desire and will for repetition. When you pass out of the cycle known as life into the cycle known as death, and carry with you thirst unquenched for the earth, and hungers unappeased for her passions, then will the magnet of the earth draw you again to her bosom. And the earth shall suckle you, and time shall wean you life after life and death after death until you wean yourself, once and for all, of your own will and accord. Abimer, has our earth power over you too, Master, for you appear as one of us? Mirdad, I come when I will, and I go when I will. I come to free the tenants of the earth from bondage to the earth. Mikayan, I would be weaned away forever from the earth. How can I do it, Master? Mirdad, by loving the earth and all her children. When love is the only residue of all your accounts with the earth, then will the earth acquit you of her debt. Mikayan, but love is attachment, and attachment is bondage. Mirdad, nay, love is the only freedom from attachment. When you love everything, you are attached to nothing. Zamora, can one by love escape the repetition of one's transgressions against love, and so arrest the wheel of time? Mirdad, that you can attain by repentance, a curse escaping your tongue will seek another lodging, when it comes back and finds your tongue coated with loving benedictions, thus love will block the repetition of that curse. A lustful glance will seek a lustful eye, when it returns and finds the mother eye brimming with loving glances, thus, love will stay the repetition of that lustful glance. A wicked wish launched by a wicked heart will seek a nest elsewhere, when it returns and finds the mother heart teeming with loving wishes, Thus love will thwart the rebirth of that wicked wish, that is repentance. Time can repeat for you nothing but love. When love becomes your only residue, when one thing only is repeated at every place, and time, it then becomes a constancy filling all time and space, and thus annihilating both. Himmel, yet one thing more troubles my heart and clouds my understanding, Master. Why did my father die this death and no other? Chapter 21. The Holy Omniwill, why things happen as they do, and when they do. Mirdad, how strange that you, children of time and space, are not aware as yet that time is the universal memory inscribed on the tablets of space. If you, being limited by the senses, can yet remember certain things between your birth and death, how much more so can time which was before your birth, and lasts indefinitely beyond your death. I say to you that time remembers everything at all, not only that of which you have a vivid recollection, but that as well of which you are entirely unaware, for there is no oblivion in time. No, not of the slightest movement, or breath, or whim, and all that is kept in the memory of time is graven deep upon the things in space. The very earth you tread, the very air you breathe, the very houses you dwell in can readily reveal to you the most minute details in the records of your lives, past, present and to come. Had you but the stamina to read, and the keenness to grasp the meaning, in life as in death, on the earth, as beyond the earth, you never are alone, but are in constant company of things and beings, which have their share in your life and death, as you have yours in their life and death. As you partake of them, so they partake of you. And as you seek them, so they seek you. Man has a will in everything, and each thing has a will in man. The interchange goes on uninterrupted, but a woefully bad accountant is the failing memory of man. Not so the faultless memory of time, which keeps a most exact account of man's relations with his fellow men and all the other beings in the universe, and forces him to settle his accounts each twinkling of an eye, life after life and death after death. A thunderbolt would never strike a house except that house draw it to itself. The house is as much to account for its ruin as the bolt. A bull would never gore a man except that man invites the bull to gore him. And verily that man is more to answer for his blood than is the bull. The murdered whets the dagger of the murderer, and both deliver the fatal thrust. The robbed directs the movements of the robber, and both commit the robbery. Man invites his own calamities, and then protests against the irksome guests, having forgotten how and when and where he penned and sent out the invitations. But time does not forget, and time delivers in due season each invitation to the right address, and time conducts each invitee to the dwelling of the host. I say to you, protest not any guest lest he avenge his slighted pride by tarrying too long, or by making his visits more frequent than otherwise he would consider meet. Be kind and hospitable to all your guests, whatever be their mien and their behavior, for they in truth are but your creditors. Give the obnoxious ones in particular even more than is their due, that they may go away thankful and satisfied, and should they visit you again, they would come back as friends, and not as creditors. Treat every guest as if he were the guest of honor, that you may gain his confidence, and learn the hidden motives of his call. Accept a misfortune as if it were a fortune, for a misfortune, once understood, is soon transformed into a fortune, while a fortune misconstrued quickly becomes a misfortune. You choose your birth and death, their time and place and their manner as well, despite your wayward memory, which is a mesh of falsehoods with glaring holes and gaps. The would-be wise declare that men have no part whatsoever in their birth and death. The indolent who squint at time and space through the narrow socket of the eye would readily dismiss most happenings in time and space as accidents. Beware of their conceit and deceit, my companions. There are no accidents in time and space, but all things are ordered by the Omniwill, which neither errs in anything, nor overlooks a thing. As drops of rain gather themselves in springs, and springs flow out to meet in brooks and rivulets, and rivulets and brooks offer themselves as tributaries to the larger streams, and mighty streams carry their waters to the seas, and seas assemble in the greater ocean, so does every will of every creature, inanimate or animate, flow as tributary into the omni-will. I say to you that everything has will, even the stone, apparently so deaf and dumb and lifeless, is not without a will, else would not have been, and would it not affect a thing, and nothing would affect it. Its consciousness of willing and of being may differ in degree from that of man, but not in substance. How much of the life of a single day can you in truth assert you are conscious of? A very trifling part indeed, if you, equipped with brains and memories and means of recording emotions and thoughts, are yet unconscious of the major part of a single day's living. Why do you wonder that the stone is so unconscious of its life and will? And as you live and move so much without being conscious of living and moving, so do you will as much without being conscious of willing. But the omni-will is conscious of your unconsciousness, and that of every creature in the universe, in redistributing itself, as is its wont at every moment of time and every point of space. The omni-will gives back to every man and everything whatever they had willed, no more, no less, whether they willed it consciously or otherwise. But men, not knowing that, are but too oft dismayed by what falls to their lot from the all-containing bag of the omni-will, and men protest in dejection and blame their dismay upon the fickle fate. It is not fate, O monks, that is fickle, for fate is but another name of the omni-will. It is man's will that is as yet too fickle, and too fitful and too uncertain of its course. It dashes east today and west tomorrow. Here it stamps this thing as a good, and decries it there as an evil. Now it accepts this man as a friend, only to fight him later as an enemy. Your will must not be fickle, my companions. Know that all your relationships with things and men are determined by what you will of them, and they of you. And what you will of men and things determines what they will of you. Therefore said I to you before, and say it now, be careful how you breathe, and how you speak, and what you wish, and think and do, for your will is hid even in every breath, and every word, and every wish and thought and deed. And what is hid from you is always manifest to the omni-will. Do not will of any man a pleasure that is to him a pain, lest your pleasure pain you more than pain, nor will of anything a good that is to it an evil, lest you be willing evil to yourselves, but will of all men and all things their love. For with it only shall your veils be lifted, and understanding drawn within your heart, and thus initiate your will into the wondrous mysteries of the omni-will. Till you grow conscious of all things you cannot be conscious of their will in you, nor of your will in them. Till you are conscious of your will in all things, and of their will in you, you cannot know the mysteries of the omni-will. And till you know the mysteries of the omni-will you must not set your will against it. For surely you shall be the loser. You shall come out of each encounter scarred and drunk with gall, and you shall seek revenge, only to add new scars to the old, and make the cup of gall overflow. I say to you, accept the omni-will, if you would turn defeat to victory. Accept without a murmur all the things that fall to you from its mysterious bag. Accept them in gratitude, and in the faith that they are your just and due share in the omni-will. Accept them with the will to understand their value and their meaning. And once you understand the hidden ways of your own will, you understand the omni-will. Accept what you do not know that it may help you to know it. Resent it, and it shall remain an irritating puzzle. Let your will be a maid to the omni-will till understanding make the omni-will a servant to your will. So taught I Noah, so I teach you. Chapter 22. Mirdad relieves Zamora of his secret, and speaks of the male and the female of marriage, of celibacy, and of the overcomer. Mirdad, Naranda, my faithful memory. What say to you these lilies? Naranda, nothing that I can hear, my master. Mirdad, I hear them say, we love Naranda, and fain do we offer him our fragrant souls in token of our love. Naranda, my constant heart. What say to you the waters in this pond? Naranda, nothing that I can hear, my master. Mirdad, I hear them say, we love Naranda, Therefore do we quench his thirst, and the thirst of his beloved lilies, Naranda, my every wakeful eye. What say to you this day with all the things it rocks so gently in its sunlit arms? Naranda, nothing that I can hear, my master, Mirdad, I hear it say, I love her Naranda. Therefore do I rock him so gently in my sunlit arms together with the rest of my beloved family, with so much to love, and to be loved by. Is not Naranda's life too full for any idle dreams and thoughts to nest and hatch therein? Verily, man is the darling of the universe, all things are glad to pamper him, but few are the men who are not spoiled by such a pampering, and fewer still the men who do not bite the hands that pamper them. To the unspoiled, even a snake bite is a loving kiss, but to the spoiled even a loving kiss is a snake bite, is it not so, Zamora? Naranda, so was the master saying as he, Zamora and myself, of a sunny afternoon, were irrigating certain flowers beds in the garden of the ark. Zamora, who was all the while considerably distracted, low-spirited, and downcast, was brought to, as it were, and much taken aback by the master's question. Zamora, what the master says is true and same must be true. Mirdad, is it not true in your case? Zamora, have you not been poisoned by many loving kisses? Are you not anguished now by the memory of your poisoned love? Zamora, throwing himself at the master's feet with tears gushing from his eyes, oh, master! How childish and vain of me, or any man, to hide a secret from your eye even in the inmost recesses of the heart. Mirdad, as he raised Zamora to himself, how childish and vain to hide it even from these lilies. Zamora, I know that my heart is not yet pure, because my last night's dreams were impure. This day I would purge my heart, I would strip it naked before you my master, before Naranda, before these lilies, and the earthworms crawling among their roots. I would unburden my soul of my crushing secret, let this languid breeze waft it to every creature in the world. I loved a maiden in my youth, fairer than the morning star was she. Her name to my tongue was sweeter by far than sleep to my eyelids. When you spoke to us on prayer, and the bloodstream I was the first, I throw, to drink in the healing substance of your words. For Hogla's love, that was the maiden's name, was the commander of my blood, and I knew what well-commanded blood could do. With Hogla's love eternity was mine. I wore it as a wedding ring, and death himself I donned as a coat of mail. I felt my older than all yesterdays, and younger than the last tomorrow to be born. My arms supported the heavens, and my feet propelled the earth, while in my heart were many blazing suns. But Hogla died, and Zamora, the flaming phoenix, became a heap of ashes with no new phoenix to emerge out of the cold and lifeless heap. Zamora the fearless lion became a frightened hare. Zamora the pillar of the sky became a woeful wreck in a pool of stagnant waters. I salvaged what I could of Zamora and made for this ark, hoping to bury myself alive in its diluvium memories and shadows. To my good fortune, I arrived here just as a companion had departed this world, and I was taken in. For 15 years have the companions in this ark seen and heard Zamora, but Zamora's secret they neither heard nor saw. Mayhap the ancient walls and somber passageways of the ark are not unaware of it. Mayhap the trees, the flowers and the birds in this garden know somewhat of it, but surely the strings of my harp can tell you more, O master, of my Hogla than I can. Just as your words began to warm and stir Zamora's ashes, and I was nigh assured of a new Zamora's birth, Hogla visits my dreams and sets my blood a-boiling, and tosses me unto the sullen crags of this day's reality, a burnt-out torch, a stillborn ecstasy, a heap of lifeless ashes. Ah, Hogla, Hogla, forgive me, master, I cannot restrain my tears. Shall flesh be aught but flesh? Pity my flesh, pity Zamora. Mirdad, pity itself is in need of pity, Mirdad has none of it. But love abundant has Mirdad for all things, even for the flesh, and more so for the spirit, that takes the grosser form of flesh, only to melt in it its own formlessness. And Mirdad's love shall raise Zamora from his ashes, and make of him an overcomer. The overcomer do I preach, The phoenix man who is too free to be a male, too sublimated to be a female. As in the denser spheres of life the male and the female are one, so are they in life's rarer spheres. The interval between is but a segment in eternity dominated by the illusion of duality. Those who can see neither before nor after believe this segment of eternity to be itself eternity. They cling to the delusion of duality, as if it were of life its very core and essence, not knowing that the rule of life is unity, a stage in time is duality. As it proceeds from unity, so does it lead to unity. The quicker you traverse this stage, the sooner you embrace your freedom. And what are man and woman but the single man unconscious of his singleness, and so cloven in twain and made to quaff the gall of duality, that he may yearn for the nectar of unity, and yearning, seek it with a will, and seeking, find it and possess it, conscious of its surpassing liberty? Let the stallion whinny to the mare, and the doe call to the buck. Nature herself urges them on, and blesses and applauds their act, for they are conscious of no higher destiny as yet than that of self-reproduction. Let men and women who are, yet not far from the stallion and the mare, and from the buck and the doe, seek each the other in the dark seclusions of the flesh. Let them alloy the licentiousness of the bedchamber with the license of wedlock. Let them take joy in the fertility of their backs and the fecundity of their wombs. Let them propagate the species. Nature herself is glad to be their sponsor and midwife. And nature spreads them couches of roses, forgetting not the pricks. But men and women yearners must realize their unity, even while in the flesh. Not by communion of the flesh, but by the will to freedom from the flesh, and all the impediments it places in their way to perfect unity and holy understanding. You often hear men speak of human nature as if it were a rigid element, well measured, well defined, exhaustively explored and firmly bounded on all sides by something they call sex. To gratify sex passions is human nature, but to harness their turbulent onrush and use it as a means for overcoming sex is to go decidedly against human nature and suffer in the end. So they say, lend not an ear to their prattle. Too vast is man, and too imponderable his nature, too varied are his talents, and too inexhaustible his strength. Beware of those who attempt to set him boundaries. The flesh, to be sure, levies on man a heavy tribute, but he pays it only for a time. Who of you would be a vassal all eternity? Which vassal does not dream of throwing off the yoke of his prices, and then relieve himself of tribute paying? Man was not born to be a vassal, not even to his manhood, and man is ever yearning for freedom from vassalage of every kind, and freedom shall surely be his. What is blood relationship to one who wills to overcome? A tie which must be broken with a will. The overcomer feels his blood related to all blood, therefore is he tied to none. Let the non-yearners reproduce the race. The yearners have another race to propagate, even the race of overcomers. The race of overcomers descends, not from back and womb, rather does it ascend from celibate hearts, whose blood is commanded by a doubtless will to overcome. I know that you and many more like you throughout the world have taken vows of celibacy, yet are not far from being celibate, as witnesses Zamora's last night's dream. Not celibate are they who wear monastic garb and shut themselves away behind thick walls and massive iron gates. Many a monk and nun are lewder than the lewdest, thought their flesh swear, and very truthfully, that it never communed with any other flesh. But celibate are they whose hearts and minds are celibate, whether they be in cloisters or in the public marts. The overcomer do I preach, man unified and master of himself. And each of you shall be an overcomer ere Mirdad lifts himself from your midst. Zamora, it saddens my heart to hear you speak of leaving us. Should the day ever come when we shall seek you and find you not, Zamora will surely put an end to his breath. Mirdad, you can will many things. Zamora, you can will all things, but one thing can you not will, and that is to put an end to your will, which is the will of life, which is the omniwill. For life, which is being, can never will its own non-being, nor can non-being have a will. Nay, not even God can end. Zamora, as to my leaving you, The day shall surely come when you shall seek me in the flesh and not find me, for I have work to do elsewhere than on this earth. But nowhere do I leave my work undone. Be of good cheer, therefore. Mirdad shall not part with you before he has made you overcomers, men unified and perfectly self-mastered. When you shall have gained self-mastery and unity, then shall you find Mirdad a constant dweller in your hearts, and his name shall never tarnish in your memory. So taught I Noah, so I teach you. Chapter 23. Mirdad heals Sim Sim and speaks on old age. Naranda, Sim Sim, the oldest cow in the stables of the ark, had been ailing for 5 days and would not touch any feed or water. When Shamanism sent for a butcher saying that it was more prudent to slaughter the cow and profit by the sale of her meat and hid than let her die and be a total loss, when the master heard of it, he became exceeding thoughtful and straightway hurried to the stable and into Sim Sim's stall. The 7 followed in his wake. Sim Sim stood sad and almost motionless, her head hanging low, her eyes half shut and her hair bristling and devoid of sheen. Now and then would she barely move an ear to chase away an impertinent fly. Her great milk bag hung limp and empty between her thighs. For Sim Sim, towards the end of her long and fruitful life, was denied the sweat heartaches of motherhood. Her hip bones jutted out, grim and forlorn, like 2 tombstones. Her ribs and vertebrae could easily be counted. Her long and slender tail, with a heavy tuft of hair at the end, fell straight and stiff. The master approached the ailing animal and began to stroke her between the horns and eyes and under the chin. Occasionally he would pass his hand over her back and belly, speaking to her all the while as he would speak to a human being. Mirdad, where is your cud? My generous Sim Sim? So much has Sim Sim given that she forgot to leave herself even a small cud to chew. And much is Sim Sim yet to give. Her snow-white milk is till this day running crimson in our veins. Her sturdy calves are trailing heavy plows in our fields and helping us to feed many a hungry mouth. Her graceful heifers fill our pastures with their young. Even her refuse graces our board and succulent greens from the garden and luscious fruits from the orchard. Our ravines still echo and re-echo good Sim Sim's lungful bellowing. Our springs still mirror her benign and lovely face. Our soil still cherishes and guards with jealously the ineffaceable prints of her hoofs. Too glad are our grasses to feed Sim Sim. Too pleased is our sun to caress her. Too happy are our breezes to glide over her soft and glossy fur. Too thankful is Mirdad to see her through the desert of old age and be her guide to other pastures in the land of other suns and breezes. Much has Sim Sim given, and much has she taken. But more has Sim Sim yet to give and to take. Mikister, can Sim Sim understand your words, that you should speak to her as if she had a human understanding? Mirdad, it is not the word that counts, good Mikister, it is what vibrates in the word, and to that even a beast is susceptible. Besides, I see a woman looking at me out of meek Sim Sim's eye. Mikister, what is the good of speaking so to aged and failing Sim Sim? Hope you thereby to stay the ravages of age and lengthen Sim Sim's days? Mirdad, a dreadful burden is old age, to man as well as to beast, and men have made it doubly so by their neglectful heartlessness. Upon a newborn babe they lavish their utmost care and affection, but to an age-burdened man they reserve their indifference more than their care, and their disgust more than their sympathy. Just as impatient as they are to see a sucking to grow into manhood, just so impatient are they to see an old man swallowed by the grave. The very young and the very old are equally helpless, but the helplessness of the young conscripts the loving, sacrificial help of all, while the helplessness of the old is able to command but the grudging help of few. Verily, the old are more deserving of sympathy than the young. When the word must knock long and loud to gain admittance to an ear once sensitive and alert to the faintest whisper, when the once limpid eye becomes a dancing floor for the weirdest blotches and shadows, when the once winged foot becomes a lump of lead, and the hand that molded life becomes a broken mold, when the knee is out of joint, and the head is a puppet on the neck, when the millstones are ground out, and the mill itself is a dreary cave, when to rise is to sweat with the fear of falling down, and to sit is to sit with the painful doubt of never rising again, when to eat and drink is to dread the aftermath of eating and drinking, and not to eat and drink is to be stalked by hateful death. When old age is upon a man, then is the time, my companions, to lend him ears and eyes, and give him hands and feet, and brace his failing strength with love so as to make him feel that he is no whit less dear to life in his waning years than he was in his waxing babyhood and youth. 80 years may not be more than a wink in eternity, but a man who has sown himself for 80 years is much more than a wink. He is the foodstuff for all who harvest his life, and which life is not harvested by all. Are you not harvesting even this very moment the life of every man and woman that ever walked this earth? What is your speech but the harvest of their speech? What are your thoughts but the gleanings of their thoughts? Your very clothes and dwellings, your food, your implements, your laws, your traditions and conventions, are they not the clothes, the dwellings, the food, the implements, the laws, the traditions and conventions of those who had been and gone before? Not one thing do you harvest at one time, but all things, and at all times. You are the sowers, the harvest, the reapers, the field and the threshing floor. If your harvest be poor, look to the seed you have sown in others, and the seed you allowed them to sow in you. Look also to the reaper and his sickle, and to the field and the threshing floor. An old man whose life you have harvested and put away in granaries is surely worthy of your utmost care. Should you embitter with indifference his years which are yet rich with things to be harvested, that which you have gathered of him and put away, and that which are yet to gather would certainly be bitter in your mouth. So it is with the failing beast. It is not right to profit by the crop, and then to curse the sower in the field. Be kind to men of every race and clime, my companions, they are the food for your God-ward journey, but be especially kind to men in their old age lest through unkindness your food be spoiled, and you never reach your journey's end. Be kind to animals of every sort and age, they are your dumb, but very faithful helpers in the long and arduous preparations for the journey, but be especially kind to animals in their old age, lest through the hardness of your heart their faithfulness be turned into faithlessness, and their help become an hindrance. It is rank ingratitude to thrive on Sim's milk, and when she has no more to give, to lay the butcher's knife to her throat. Naranda. Hardly had the master finished saying that, when Shamanism with the butcher walked in. The butcher went straight to Sim. No sooner did he see her than we heard him shout in joyful mockery, "How say you this cow is ill and dying? She is healthier than I, excepting that she is starved. The poor animal, and I am not, give her to eat." And great was our amazement, indeed, when we looked at Sim and saw her chewing the cud. Even Shamanism's heart softened, and he ordered the best of cow delicacies brought to Sim, and Sim ate with a relish. Chapter 24. Is it lawful to kill to eat? When Shamanism and the butcher had departed, Mikayan asked the master saying, "Mikayan, is it not lawful, master, to kill to eat?" Mirdad, tree of life, feed on death, is to become food for death. To live by others' pain is to become a prey for pain. So has decreed the Omni-Will. Know that and choose your course, Mikayan. If I had my choice I would choose to live like a phoenix on the aroma of things, not on their flesh. Mirdad, an excellent choice indeed. Believe, Mikayan, that the day is coming in which men shall live by the aroma of things which is their spirit, and not by their flesh and blood, and that day is not far off for the yearners, for the yearners know that the life of flesh is but the bridge to the fleshless life, and the yearners know that the coarse and inadequate senses are but the peepholes into the world of the infinitely fine and adequate sense, and the yearners know that every flesh they tear they must inevitably repair soon or late with their own flesh, and every bone they crush they must rebuild with their own bone, and every drop of blood they spill they must replenish with their own blood, for that is the law of flesh, and the yearners would be free of bondage to this law. Therefore do they reduce their bodily wants to the lowest minimum, reducing thereby their debt to the flesh, which is in truth a debt to pain and death. The yearner is inhibited by his own will and yearning, while the non-yearner waits on others to prohibit him. A multitude of things which are to the non-yearner lawful the yearner makes unlawful for himself, while the non-yearner grasps for more, and yet more things, to put in his pocket or belly. The yearner walks his way without a pocket, and with a belly clean of any creature's blood and convulsions. What the non-yearner gains, or thinks he gains, in bulk the yearner gains in lightness of spirit and sweetness of understanding. Of two men looking at a green field, one estimates its yield in bushels, and calculates the price of the bushels in silver and in gold. The other drinks the greenness of the field with his eye, and kisses every blade with his, though and fraternizes in his soul with every rootlet and pebble and every clod of earth. I say to you, the latter is the rightful owner of that field, although the other owns it in fee simple. Of the two men sitting in a house, one is the owner, the other but a guest. The owner expatiates on the cost of building and maintenance, and on the values of draperies and tapestries and other trappings and furnishings, while the guest blesses in his heart the hands that quarried, dressed, and built the stone, and the hands that wove the tapestries and the draperies, and the hands that invaded the forest and turned it into windows and doors, and into chairs and tables, and he is exalted in spirit, in exalting the creative hand on his back, but dwelling not therein. Of the two men sharing with the calf the milk of that calf's mother, one eyes the calf with the thought that his tender flesh would provide good meat for him, and his friends to feast upon at his approaching birthday. The other thinks of the calf as his brother of the teat, and is filled with affection for the young beast and his mother. I say to you, the latter is truly nourished by that calf's meat, while the first is poisoned thereby. Many things are put in the belly that should be put in the heart, many things are shut in the pocket and the larder that should be shut in the eye and the nose, many things are crushed with the teeth that should be crushed with the mind. Very little does the body need to sustain it. The less you give it, the more it gives you in return. The more you give it, the less it gives you in return. Verily, things outside your larder and belly sustain you more than when in the larder and the belly. But since you are unable yet to live by the fragrance alone of things, take unafraid your need, but no more than your need, of the generous heart of the earth. For the earth is so hospitable and loving that her heart is every spread before her children. How else can the earth be? And where could she go outside of herself to feed herself? The earth must feed the earth, and the earth is not a miserly hostel, but her board is ever spread and full for all. In the same manner as the earth invites you to her board, withholding nothing from your reach, in that same manner must you invite the earth to your board, and say to her in utmost love and sincerity, O Mother inexpressible, as you have laid your heart before me to take of it my need, so do I lay my heart before you to take of it your need. If that be your guiding spirit in eating of the heart of the earth, then little does it matter what you eat. But if that be indeed your guiding spirit, then should you have the wisdom and the love not to bereave the earth of any of her children, especially those which have come to feel the pleasure of living and the pain of dying, those that have arrived at the segment of duality. For they too have their road to wend slowly and laboriously towards unity, and their road is longer than yours. Delay them in their march, and they shall delay you in your march. Abimer, since all living things are doomed to die through one cause or another, why should I have any scruples? If I be the cause of any animal's accepted, find him fit as an instrument for killing. Mirdad, while it is true that all the living are condemned to die, yet woe to him who is the cause of death of any living thing. As you would not commission me to kill Naranda, knowing that I love him much and that no bloodlust is in my heart, likewise the Omniwill would commission no man to kill a fellowman or an animal except it find him fit as an instrument for killing. So long as men are what they are, so long shall there be thefts and robberies among them, and lies and wars and murders, and every kind of dark and evil passions. But woe to the thief and the robber, and woe to the liar and the warlord, and to the murderer and every man who harbors dark and evil passions in his heart, for they being full of woe are used by the Omniwill as messengers of woe. But you, my companions, must cleanse your hearts of every dark and evil passion, that the Omniwill may find you fit to carry to the suffering world the joyful message of relief from suffering, the message of overcoming, the message of freedom through love and understanding. So taught I Noah, so I teach you. Chapter 25. Day of the Vine and the Preparation thereof. Mirdad found missing on the eve thereof. Naranda. The day of the vine was drawing nigh, and we of the ark, including the master, together with squadrons of volunteer helpers from the outside, were busy night and day making ready for the great feast. The master worked with so much zeal and was so unsparing of his strength that even Shamanism commented on the fact with evident satisfaction. The vast cellars of the ark had to be swept and whitewashed, and scores of great wine jars and barrels cleaned and arranged to receive the new wine, while as many jars and barrels containing wine of the last year's vintage had to be properly displayed for buyers to taste and to examine their contents, for the custom is to sell on each vine day the wine of the year preceding. The spacious courts of the ark were to be tidied and groomed well, and hundreds of tents and booths were to be pitched and built therein for pilgrims to live, and traders to display their wares for the whole week's duration of festivities. The great winepress had to be put in order and made ready to receive untold quantities of grapes, which were to be brought to the ark by its many tenants and patrons on donkey, mule and camel back. Enormous quantities of bread had to be baked, and other provisions prepared to be sold to those who run short of provisions, or who come entirely provision-less. Originally an occasion for Thanksgiving, the day of the vine, thanks to Shamanism's unusual business sense and acumen, has been stretched into a week and turned into a sort of fair to which men and women of all walks of life, from near and far, flocked in annually growing numbers. Princes and paupers, soil tillers and artisans, profit seekers, pleasure seekers and seekers of other ends, drunkards and total abstainers, pious pilgrims and impious tramps, men of the temple and men of the tavern, with herds of beasts of burden, such as the motley horde that invades the quiet of Altar Peak twice every year, the day of the vine in the fall, and the day of the ark in the spring. No pilgrim comes to the ark on either of these occasions with empty hands, but all bring gifts of one kind or another, the gifts varying from a cluster of grapes, or a pinnacone to a string of pearls or a diamond necklace, while a 10 of 10 per centum of their sales is levied on all the traders. It is a custom on the opening day of festivities for the senior, seated on a high platform beneath a great arbor hung with bunches of grapes, to welcome and bless the crowd, then to bless and receive their gifts, and then to drink with them the first cup of the new vintage. He would pour himself a cup out of a great long neck, hollowed gourd, then hand that gourd over to one of the companions, to be passed round to the multitudes, refilling it each time it was emptied. And when all had filled their cups, the senior would ask them to raise them high and sing with him the hymn to the sacred vine, which is said to have been sung by Father Noah and his family when they first tasted of the blood of the vine. And having sung the hymn, the crowd would empty their cups with shouts of joy and then disperse to pursue their various trades and pleasures. And this is the hymn of the sacred vine. Hail to the sacred vine, hail to the wondrous root that feeds her tender shoot and fills her golden fruit with vivifying wine. Hail the sacred vine, orphans of the flood, stranded in the mud, taste and bless the blood of the branch benign. Hail the sacred vine, you hostages of clay, you pilgrims gone astray. The ransom and the way are in the plant divine, the vine, the vine, the vine. On the morning of the day before the opening of festivities, the master was found missing. The 7 were alarmed beyond words, and they immediately instituted a most thorough search, all day and all night. With torches and lanterns did they seek in the ark and the vicinity, but no traces could they find of the master. Shamanism showed so much concern and appeared to be so much perturbed that no one suspected his hand in the mysterious disappearance, yet all were convinced that the master had fallen victim of some foul play. The great festivities were on, but the seven were stricken dumb with sadness and moved about like shadows. The crowd had sung the hymn and drunk the wine, and the senior had descended from the high platform when a voice was heard shouting high above the din and clatter of the crowd, "We want to see Mirdad. We want to hear Mirdad." The voice we recognized as that of Ristidian, who had spread far and wide all that the master had said and done unto him. Quickly his shouting was taken up by the multitude, and the clamor for the master became general and deafening, which brimmed our eyes with tears and clamped our throat as with a vice. Suddenly the tumult subsided, and a great hush fell in the crowd, and scarce could we believe our eyes when we looked and saw the master on the high platform waving his hand for silence. Chapter 26. See next part. And that's not all. Our experts and regular viewers respond to all comments. Also check if you forgot to subscribe and set your bell to receive notifications about new audiobooks and other useful self-development materials that we release regularly. Join in the discussions, don't forget to give likes and, if possible and inspired, support the development of the channel financially. All useful links will be in the description and the first attached comment. Goodness, love and wisdom to all. And now move on to watch the next part of the video at the links below, or choose something from the playlists of the channel and those you see on the screen.